I begged him for 10 minutes not to shoot me.
Behind the horror of Columbine High School, in fact behind every school shooting, is a story of bullied kids turning to lethal violence for revenge.
I really hated the world.
Bullying is so pervasive. It touches every school.
But not all victims of bullying turn guns on their tormentors. Some of them turn guns on themselves.
Brian said he was tired of it and he couldn't take this anymore.
Kids making fun of other kids, bullies. Hello, I'm Bill Curtis. It was once thought of as little more than a rite of passage, but that idea is beginning to change. There's growing evidence that bullying may drive kids to violence and may even have played a role in some recent schoolyard shootings. In tonight's investigative reports, we'll see how bullying is turning into a national epidemic. And we'll learn firsthand how schools have often turned a deaf ear to cries for help. We'll talk to kids and parents about why some victims of bullying have resorted to deadly violence to get back at their tormentors, and why others have decided to take their own lives. Children that have been quite literally bullied to death.
Brian was about a do-everything type teenager.
Bill Head is talking about his only son, Brian, who committed suicide when he was 15.
He could be off with his friends, or he could spend time by himself with his video games.
Bill and Rita Head lived with their son Brian in a suburb just outside Atlanta.
He was comfortable going off with my wife and I, or just with her, or just with me. And it was really quite a mix of activity that he had.
But underneath the surface, trouble was brewing. On the morning of March 25th, 1994, Brian left for A&E High School, where he was a sophomore.
It was a routine day. Brian would always pass by his mother and tell her that he loved her, and she would tell him the same thing. It was just a common greeting that we had and the way we felt about each other.
But Brian was experiencing other emotions that day, emotions that he didn't share with his parents. Along with his usual school paraphernalia, Brian had hidden a 9mm semi-automatic pistol in his book bag. It was just before lunch in his economics class that Brian decided to act.
He stood up, he says, "I'm tired of this." He reached into his bag, pulled out a gun, and he pointed at everybody. That's whenever I was gone, then I heard the gunshot.
I got mad and just pulled the gun out, and then I ran. A few other people ran.
Responding to a frantic 911 call, Cherokee County Sheriff Roger Garrison arrived at the high school within minutes to a chaotic scene.
That one of the windows in the unit had been busted out as one of the students literally jumped out the window to escape harm, and then there next to a desk was the body of Brian Head, who had taken his own life with a 9mm handgun.
Sheriff Garrison then went to Rita Head's office and told her what had happened to her son.
At the time that Brian took his life, the word I have to use to describe my reaction, I mean, it really pales to what the emotion behind it was, just utter shock.
I'll never forget that look in her face. As soon as she saw me, she knew something had happened, and there was the obvious, the disbelief or the denial that it could actually have happened.
A co-worker of Rita's called Bill Head to tell him there had been an accident and that he needed to go to her office. That's where Bill heard what happened.
That was the most difficult moment of my life. I could not imagine why. It just seemed like it had to be a mistake.
Brian's classmates, however, knew he was troubled. Brian was overweight and wore glasses, an easy target for bullies.
He was always mad because everybody was teasing him, and one day he got really mad because in lunch one day he was wearing his glasses and someone threw an apple at him and it hit his glasses and they broke.
The universal statements from the students was that they knew why Brian took his life, that he had been bullied and harassed and that they had picked on him. All of his peers knew.
Because Brian had been bullied from the time he entered first grade.
He would have kids who would pick on him about his thick glasses or about his weight or or about the size. He was a pretty big kid. And he would bring his problems home to us and tell us about them, and then we would coach him on what he needed to do immediately at school. And in the earlier years, he would go back to school and elicit help from his teachers.
But that didn't stop the bullying. Partly, experts say, because bullying is looked on as a part of growing up. Dr. Gary McGibney is a school psychologist in Atlanta.
A long way to go, but we're trying. Part of the problem that we have run into in trying to develop an awareness of the issues and problems related to bullying is this perception in the United States that bullying is a rite of passage. I went through it when I was a kid. Every kid goes through it when they go through being a child. What's the big deal? You're overreacting.
But by the time Brian reached middle school, the teasing had changed.
Some of what had started out being just name-calling started to escalate into physical abuse. Kids sometimes would slap him in the back of the head or shove him up against the lockers, trying to get a reaction out of him, either get him to cry or, cower or whatever. There were times when he was physically injured to the point of having to go to the doctor.
Because of the violent attacks, Brian did not want to go to school. In fact, an estimated 160,000 students nationwide stay home from school every day to avoid being bullied, according to the National Education Association. Author SuEllen Fried is an expert on childhood bullying.
Kids are complaining of stomach aches and headaches and depression, and they can't sleep, they can't concentrate on their schoolwork. They are exhibiting all kinds of signs to show that this is very serious.
Brian tried to avoid the bullying, but nothing helped. After a while, he even stopped asking his teachers for help. Instead, he started retaliating. At least 3 times a year during the 8th and 9th grades, the heads were called into E.T. Booth Middle School because the school said that Brian was getting into fights with other students.
When we got to the point where we had to go to school and talk to the teachers, most of the time we found out that it was basically kids who were just bullying and picking on him without any prompting or any agitation from his part.
But during his sophomore year, the last year of his life, the heads didn't get calls from the school. Brian told his parents that the bullying had stopped.
We found out that Brian had basically decided to stay quiet, keep it to himself.
And by keeping it to himself, he began to feel as if there was nowhere to turn. Brian shared his depression with his classmates.
Yesterday I was reading my Bible and he goes, "Do you believe in Jesus?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How can you? Because everything goes wrong," and he doesn't try helping you.
That's why there was a part of Bill Head that understood why his son chose to commit suicide.
He wanted the world to know where the source of his torture was coming from in no uncertain terms. He wanted to take his life at a place where he felt like his life had been destroyed.
In fact, Bill Head later discovered that it was a run-in with a bully that led directly to Brian's suicide.
Brian asked him to pick on someone his own size. And the boy turned around to Brian and challenged him and then slapped Brian. And that's when Brian pulled out the gun and then pointed it at the boy.
But instead of firing at the boy, Brian turned the gun on himself. And after Brian's death, the Heads discovered their son had written several poems.
I think the title of this one here describes what he would have liked to have done. It's entitled Shadows. And he says, "In the shadows, their eyes cannot stare my soul into oblivion. In the dark, I am free to move about in the shadows. I can sleep without dreams of despair and deception. In the shadows, I am home.
Brian's decision to end the bullying by committing suicide is unusual. What has become much more common and far more alarming is for the victims of bullying to retaliate with lethal violence. On April 20th, 1999, just after 11 in the morning, two students, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, walked into Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, and opened fire. Crystal Woodman was a Columbine student.
And they came in and just started shooting and lighting off bombs.
The two high school seniors were heavily armed with a semi-automatic rifle, a 9mm handgun, two sawed-off shotguns, and dozens of homemade pipe bombs. Student Bree Pasquale barely escaped.
Everyone around me got shot, and I begged him for 10 minutes not to shoot me. And he just put the gun in my face and started bleeding everywhere and started laughing, saying that it was all because people were mean to him last year.
Students said the gunman seemed to be targeting the kids who were popular, like the school's athletes.
Because they came in, they said, all the jocks stand up, we're going to kill every single one of you.
It turned out later that Harris and Klebold had been teased and taunted at school for years. Bullied, in other words.
They were kind of the outcasts of the school, and so they really didn't fit in with anyone.
Jocks totally pick on these kind of kids. They're like, you know, they walk by and they're like, oh, look at this dirt ball, or, you know, things like that.
Klebold and Harris were part of a gang of outcasts at Columbine called the Trenchcoat Mafia.
They call themselves the Trenchcoat Mafia, I guess, so they sound tough and nobody will mess around with them.
But joining the Trenchcoat Mafia apparently didn't stop the bullying. Some students said that perhaps Harris and Klebold just couldn't take it anymore.
I feel that maybe they didn't have anywhere else to go with it. Like, hate and anger builds up, and when you have nowhere to go with it and you feel that you have nobody to talk to, it comes out in different ways.
Eric Vike was an acquaintance of Harris and Klebold.
It is just against those who they felt was insulting them, harassing them, and they felt that if they weren't going to take this anymore, and they wanted it stopped, and unfortunately they did.
When authorities were finally able to enter Columbine 4 hours after Klebold and Harris began their attack, 15 students were dead, including the two gunmen, and over 30 others were wounded. Authorities said the gunman had committed suicide, Harris first and then Klebold seconds later.
The two suspects appear to have died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds at this time.
Columbine was the seventh in a rash of mass school shootings perpetrated in each case by kids who had suffered years of bullying. Almost 2 years earlier, 16-year-old Luke Woodham turned a gun on his classmates in Pearl, Mississippi. Just after 8 in the morning, Woodham entered the high school cafeteria and opened fire. Monica Tanner saw what happened.
As I was walking around by the counselor's office, I saw him pull out a gun out from under a long blue jacket and started just shooting everywhere. And after about the second shot, I ran.
Outside the school, the assistant principal chased Woodham down and held him at gunpoint until the police arrived.
We got him in custody here.
By the time Woodham was arrested, he had killed 2 students and wounded 7 others. In a videotaped confession, Woodham told police why he did it.
It all built up inside of me over time. People always picked on me. They always called me gay and stupid stuff like that.
When kids are going through this normal adolescent transition where they're very confused and anxious about their sexual identity, that kind of name-calling absolutely is devastating.
One of Woodham's victims was ex-girlfriend Christina Menifee.
And I actually had somebody to love and somebody loved me. First time in my life. Only time in my life. And then she just, all of a sudden one day, just broke up with me.
Menifee was one of his first targets.
That's went there and got the gun, turned around, ran towards school. I yelled, "This ends now." Ran inside the school, ran up to Christina, bam, right in the heart.
Woodham said he didn't fire indiscriminately.
You know, I didn't shoot at anyone who ever did anything who was nice.
But his spree to get back at his tormentors had begun before he went to school that day.
What happened at the house? While I was in bed, I went into the kitchen. I got a pillow, went to the kitchen, got a butcher knife. Walked to my mom's room, put it over her head, and stabbed her to death. Why'd you stab your mom? She never loved me. She just picked on you a little bit. Always. She always told me I wouldn't amount to anything. She always told me I was bad and stupid and lazy.
Lonely and isolated at home, Woodham said he was teased and taunted at school.
I stopped caring. And because people at school thought I was on drugs or something because I just didn't care about anything.
Kids are turning the rage outward and they're committing homicide. But until we understand the connection between the pain and the rage, we will continue to be witness to this horror.
Bullying, experts say, is the cause of almost all the mass school shootings over the last 4 years. But most victims of bullying do not turn a gun on their tormentors. Instead, they turn inward, trying to shoulder the pain and anger themselves. In a recent survey, 30% of young people who had been bullied said they occasionally brought weapons to school for protection. In another study, more than half of suburban principals admitted that violence had gotten worse on their school grounds. And bullying may not just exist in middle and high schools. In fact, some educators say the time to start intervening against bullying is grade school.
Kittredge, you had 7 periods and all these teachers, like 4 or 5 teachers.
13-year-old Alex Schmid lives just outside Atlanta, Georgia, with his parents and sister. When Alex was in 4th grade, he transferred to Kittredge, a so-called magnet school for high achievers.
And it was really cool at first. Made me feel older.
By 5th grade, though, things began to change.
Just kind of started all of a sudden. It's like one day playing with friends, one day some people have left and they're hanging out with other friends and they just don't like you anymore. If you weren't in one clique, they wouldn't talk to you at all. They would basically exclude you from everything, stuff. Some people got a little rabid.
Suddenly, Alex became a target for bullies.
They would say that I was stupid a lot, and they would use profanity, and most of the time they just picked on me.
He told his mother, Cynthia Wood, that he wanted to switch schools, but she was reluctant to take Alex out of Kittredge because of its reputation.
A child is very fortunate to be pulled to go to that school, to receive that kind of education, particularly in a public school. And I wanted him to stick it out because it was really a gift to him.
Like most parents, Wood viewed the bullying that Alex was going through as a rite of passage, something that all kids go through.
I didn't see when he would talk about, you know, maybe I don't have any friends or whatever, I didn't see it quite that serious, and I just told him to, you know, try to get through. It would pass.
Instead, the bullying got worse.
Sometimes they'd throw things at me like a piece of food or a crayon or something. I just really hated the school. I did not look forward to it in the morning.
Alex's mother thought things would change once Alex got into 6th grade because he would be going to Shelby, a different middle school. Although Alex would be taking classes with many of the same students from Kittredge, he would also have the opportunity to meet other kids outside the magnet program.
He didn't want to go, and that was my decision for him to try, and I was hoping that things would be better for him.
But things did not get better for Alex. In fact, once again, the bullying got worse.
Then when he got on to 6th grade, it just kind of started to get really bad because most of my friends had gone off to him, and most people were being mean to other people and got out of hand.
The bullying began to take a toll on Alex's schoolwork.
Sometimes I'd be afraid to raise my hand because somebody might insult me or something. And I might get really embarrassed if I got it wrong. And I just really lost a bunch of initiative because I wanted to get out. And I really started disliking the school a lot.
His grades fell, and he has always been very goal-oriented, and in this case, it was completely different. He wasn't failing or anything, but he really didn't care. He didn't want to try at all.
Alex said the bullies made him so angry he wanted to beat them up. But instead, like many kids who are bullied, Alex became withdrawn.
I think he was carrying a lot of pain that he didn't necessarily share with me or his father. But I think that Alex was burdening a lot of that pain silently.
And by 7th grade, Alex told his parents that he just couldn't take it anymore.
It just built up inside me, and I just let it out and got really mad. I would tell them I really didn't want to go, for them to pull me out.
So Cynthia Wood pulled Alex out of Chambly at the end of 7th grade and sent him to Henderson, the local middle school across the street, where Alex says he is a lot happier.
It's great. I have a bunch of friends, nice teachers. Perfect.
For the most part, Alex's tormentors confined themselves to teasing and name-calling. But other kinds of bullying can be far worse. It can be so bad that kids like 11-year-old Travis Retherford of Kansas City, Missouri, not only hated going to school, he feared it.
I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to get up.
Last year, when Travis was in 4th grade, he attended Notre Dame de Sion, a private school in downtown Kansas City. He hated going to the school playground.
When I'd go outside for recess, one of the kids who normally sought people out who were younger, and you just kind of picked on them and kind of shove and push and try and start a fight and hope that they'd retaliate, because it wasn't any big deal for him to get in trouble, just for us to get in trouble.
Travis said one bully picked on him and his friends almost every day.
They were my friends and then other people younger than me and just everyone around, but he just, I don't know, sometimes it felt like he was just singling me out.
At first, Travis did not tell his parents, Leanne and Michael Retherford, that he was being bullied.
I thought I could do it by myself and try and go through it without my parents' help, see if I could do it on my own so I wouldn't have to have them worrying about it, because they still probably have a lot of stress under work too.
But as the bullying got worse, Travis finally told his parents what was going on.
And they were really receiving to that too. They'd sit down and talk with me and listen to me, and it's not like they would just listen to me right before they went to work. It's every night when I came home, I could just talk to them.
I told him that, you know, Dad and I don't go into the marketplace every day with the expectations that we're going to be bullied. If we did, it would make it very difficult to work under those conditions. And you, by the same token, should not expect to go to school every day and have to face that kind of treatment.
Retherford says she told Travis to avoid the bully because fighting back would only make things worse. But despite Travis's best efforts, the bully stepped up his attacks. One day, when the bully tried to steal his basketball, Travis refused to hand it over.
So then he grabbed it and he shoved me down on the ground, and then he was like trying to take the ball, and I was going up and down, my head was banging on the concrete.
After that incident, Leanne Retherford called the school administrators. Although Notre Dame took disciplinary action, the bullying did not stop.
After time passes, you still run into the same things on a daily basis a week later. It didn't really change anything.
Eventually, Travis started to have trouble focusing during class.
It's kind of like I'm concentrating on him and not my schoolwork and how he should be getting in trouble, or how I hope that he doesn't bully anybody else. So it kind of drops my grades a little bit.
Like Cynthia Wood, Leanne Retherford decided to transfer her son out of private school.
we decided to bring him up to the local neighborhood school, which is Graden.
And Travis said he looks forward to going to Graden in the morning.
It's just a lot easier of an environment to be in because you don't have to worry about other people.
Alex and Travis dealt with the nightmare of bullying by transferring to other schools. But many victims of bullying have a hard time simply ignoring the taunting and teasing. Sometimes they retaliate by becoming bullies themselves.
They call him dumb and stupid and names like that.
You can't do it, and you can't do the work, and just literally ridiculing him because he was slower than most of the other children were.
Pamela and Shannon Klunder are talking about how their younger son, 10-year-old Stephen, was teased mercilessly, partly because he suffers from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which was first diagnosed when Stephen was in the 2nd grade.
ADD is just attention deficit disorder, but when you have hyperactivity in there, then he just bounces off the walls constantly.
Because of ADHD, Stephen had a hard time keeping up, so he was often teased and taunted by other students.
Most of the time when they were teasing him, he actually can turn into what looks like a cornered animal when he was at that stage. He would look like he was coming out with fangs and claws, and he was ready to tear you apart.
In kindergarten, Stephen stabbed another boy with his pencil.
This boy was saying that I liked a girl, and he just kept on saying that and spreading rumors about it and stuff. So then I got, I tried to keep it in as long as I could, and then I couldn't. And then he was the last one to say it to me, so I ended up doing that to him.
He stabbed the child in the back so badly that the child had to go to the nurse and the parents had to be called.
Experts say that Stephen's decision to retaliate against the bully was not unusual.
The kids will a lot of times say that the reason that somebody is a bully is because they were bullied themselves. And so they're just getting revenge or they are reacting. So I think that there is a very thin line in that some children cross over and one day they're a target and the next day they're a bully.
After Stephen stabbed the child with a pencil, he was suspended from school. But that didn't stop him from continuing to bully other children, particularly those who teased him.
I would either yell at them or say something back mean or something, or hit them or something like that.
Pam Klunder, who drives her son's school bus, said that she even saw Stephen bullying other kids on their way home from school.
Hey, bud, how you doing? He was always wanting to tell the other kids what to do. He always wanted to make me have a seating arrangement so that he could help pick the seats. He wanted to tell me where to put everybody.
Turning into the class bully, however, didn't make Stephen feel good.
Depressed and sad, sometimes angry, well, almost all the time angry.
He had very negative feelings about himself. Yeah, he felt real down on himself. He felt like he couldn't keep up and he couldn't do what they did and nobody liked him. And
by 2nd grade, Stephen's bullying was getting worse.
it got really bad. It got to the point that he was a very violent child.
That year, Stephen stabbed another child with a pencil.
He was sitting in class, and I believe the kid was just picking at him, you know, and nudging him and tormenting him and stuff like that. And Stephen just took his pencil and stabbed him in the arm with it.
After that, the Klunders sent Stephen to anger management classes provided by the local school district.
He had to go through a lot of growing and a lot of learning and a lot of classes in order to mentally learn how to handle his own anger.
The Klunders partly attribute Stephen's bullying to his hyperactivity disorder. But Stephen's father also said that the physical methods he used to discipline Stephen, like spankings and harsh words, may also have contributed to why Stephen became a bully.
The way I disciplined him, it just made him more angrier and more outraged, which just, made it worse. And then they start going to school, and kids go to school and they see this, see it at home, so they do the same thing at school.
I still have people tell me, well, that child would mind you if you just give him a good old spanking, good old-fashioned spanking. Well, all that does, like he said, is just make him madder.
So the Klunders started going to parenting classes, where Shannon said he learned more effective methods of disciplining Stephen.
that's part of what taught me how to cope with his behavior of things that he'd do, and then how I'd react to it was wrong by getting upset with him. That just taught him how to be more upset.
Although Stephen still gets upset easily, he has stopped bullying his peers.
Once, when I was in kindergarten, when I stabbed that dude with a pencil, well, I got kicked out of school for a day or somewhat, and now I don't get kicked out of school or nothing like that.
And his parents are pleased with Stephen's progress.
He's went from a child that, we had to worry a lot about him, to a child that we don't hardly have to worry at all now. He's very well behaved. He's learned that he's going to have to suffer the consequences for his own actions.
I seen a tremendous change of him not bullying kids around, especially neighborhood kids.
Bullying has become so rampant, however, that it is no longer confined to boys like Stephen. Girls have become bullies as well, although girls tend to avoid physical bullying in favor of verbal and emotional taunts.
It's social isolation. Don't talk to her, don't play with her, don't interact with her. She dresses different than we do.
Shelby Troiani, a 10-year-old at Graden Elementary in Kansas City, Missouri, was bullied by other girls in her class.
There was these one girls, and they sort of had a clique. They would always hang together. I would ask if I could sit by them, and they're like, no, there's too many people. Maybe next time. And every time I would try, they would always say no.
Like Stephen Klunder and many other kids who have been bullied, Shelby retaliated by becoming a bully herself.
Well, I felt very mad, and I just said, why don't we start our own clique that the rest of the kids are out? And there was like 10 girls, so they had a 5 group and we had a 5 group.
School officials said that Shelby began bullying other girls during recess. She tried to control friendships by telling her classmates who they could and couldn't play with, and on several occasions, she threatened and pushed other girls. The school counselor confronted Shelby.
She asked me, I'm going to ask you one more time, what did you do wrong?
But Shelby repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
I think Shelby had a lot of turmoils within herself, and I think that was just bringing a lot of this out, this lying and all.
Shelby's grandparents, Cecilia and Philip Troiani, said the turmoil stems from her problems at home. They took custody of Shelby when she was 3 years old because her mother, a drug addict and alcoholic, was unable to take care of her.
I would go over to the apartment and she'd be passed out on the bed, and I'd go in and pick Shelby up out of her crib and just take her on home with me. Well, it got to be where it was happening a lot, so we got custody of Shelby through family services.
Last year, Shelby's mother began dropping in on her parents sporadically, living with Shelby for a period, then disappearing for days or weeks at a time. That's when Shelby's problems at school got worse.
My mom started being there in my house, and she would always go out in the backyard and suntan in the pool. And I would always get worried about her, because when she did drugs, I would worry. And now that she's home, I'm still worried that something could happen to her. And when I started thinking about her, I wasn't focusing in school. And that's how it started.
Experts say that Shelby's feeling that she had no control over her home life may be one reason she sought more control over her relationships with her peers.
When young children don't feel powerful in their families or in their home, and they don't have control over all the chaos that's going on around them, they feel a greater need to try to control perhaps the school environment or the playground environment.
Because of the problems Shelby was having in school, the Troianis told their daughter that she could no longer see Shelby.
Mom chooses to live her life the way she wants, but Shelby's just a young child, so I can't have that around Shelby.
In addition, school counselors helped Shelby stop bullying.
Well, they asked me what did I do wrong and how could I have helped it, how could I have not done that.
As a result, Shelby has been getting along better with her peers at school.
I think it's wonderful that the school is doing something about the children today, because we live in a society that these kids anymore, it's just not learning the academic stuff. They have a lot of emotional problems. And in dealing with these emotional problems, it takes the school to help on that, and the parents got to be really involved with it too.
Counselors told the Troianis that talking to their granddaughter and spending as much time with her as possible are also important. Even asking, "How was your day?"
I ask you every day, don't I?
Yep.
Yeah, every day. You know, you have to be persistent, I think, with the young ones today.
The attention Shelby received is not unique. In the wake of the rash of school shootings, schools across the country are trying to go beyond just stopping it. They're trying to prevent kids from becoming bullies in the first place.
To inflict pain on somebody, I don't believe that any child deserves to be abused by anybody. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning.
SuEllen Fried of the Stop Violence Coalition has been invited to talk about bullying at Graden Elementary School in Kansas City, Missouri, by school principal Michael Otto. Otto has an almost missionary zeal to make his school bully-free.
Open up your minds and share. These issues with behavior are escalating, and we can't ignore that. We're going to deal with it. These are children that will grow up and lead our country, and that's the bottom line for me.
And one way Otto combats bullying is through workshops like the one Fried is giving to a 5th grade class. And Fried does not mince words when she talks to kids about bullying.
And I think that bullying is a form of child abuse. Because I believe that if you're hurting, it doesn't make any difference if the person that's hurting you is your parent or your classmate.
These 5th graders understand why Fried is talking to them about bullying.
What are you aware of? Some things that have happened that have been in the news. What are you aware of? Yes.
The shooting in Utah.
Yes, a shooting in Utah. Columbine shooting. How many of you have heard about the shootings? This is no surprise to you what we're talking about shootings. Kids that have been shot by their own classmates. This is a part of bullying. This is why it's so serious. I am very concerned about the kids that are being picked on because all of the school shootings that we heard about, the only single thing that all of those boys had in common was that they had been rejected by their classmates. So they had started out as targets and they became bullies.
Fried emphasizes to the class that bullying takes many forms.
I want you to finish this sentence. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but everybody.
Words can never hurt you.
Words can never hurt me. Is that true?
No.
It is not true. Who can give me an example of verbal bullying? What is verbal bullying? Somebody I haven't called up. Yes.
Like calling people names and
Name
laughing
calling.
at them when you hurt someone with your words.
So what you say is so important. Your words can be absolutely devastating.
But Fried tells the class there's more to bullying than just words.
What is bullying where there is no physical and no verbal, but there's still lots of ways you can hurt somebody? Yes.
You leave people out.
Leaving people out. Yes.
Dirty looks.
Dirty looks, giving somebody the evil eye.
And she says there's also sexual bullying.
What is sexual bullying at the 5th grade level? It happens. What is it, Jeff?
Touching somebody where they're not supposed to be touched.
Yes.
Making fun of like if they're male or female.
Now there's another thing about sexual bullying that we absolutely need to talk about. It's difficult, but it's really important to do. And that is calling people names like gay, queer, fag, homo, lesbian. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. The 2 boys that killed all the other students in Columbine, that is the way they were taunted. That is the way they were made fun of. And they couldn't take it anymore. So we have to be very thoughtful about calling people names like that. I plead with you. Okay, I am now going to ask you the toughest question.
It's then that Fried brings the workshop to a personal level.
I believe that a lot of you are sitting here and thinking about things that you have said or done to hurt someone. And I think that a lot of you would feel a lot better if you apologized to somebody and helped try to heal.
I want to say sorry to Eric because I said something that I shouldn't have said to him, and I think it kind of offended him.
Melissa.
I like to apologize to Sinji because one time on the bus, somebody was making fun of her, one of my friends, and I didn't stand up for her like I should have done, so I felt really bad.
That was a very important apology, Melissa.
SuEllen Fried later gave the same lecture to 2 classes of 4th graders, but Principal Otto says bullying starts a lot younger than that.
A 3-year-old can learn very quickly to manipulate other 3-year-olds by threatening to hit them or bite them, okay? And that gets a reaction from the other kids. And if that's not corrected by the adults in charge and guided, or in the home, you're going to have that intensify.
Otto believes that bullying begins when kids don't care about each other. Caring came naturally to Otto as a teacher, and he only discovered it when a student wrote an essay about how kind Otto had been to her.
It got me thinking about, wow, do I really have that kind of impact on a child, in that this child could see me as someone being kind. And so I began thinking that maybe I needed to take a good look at myself as a role model for our young people.
So when he became principal of Graden Elementary 7 years ago, he set out to create a climate of caring throughout the school.
The one thing I had in my mind was I was going to role model what I wanted the kids to do and the teachers to do. The greatest form of discipline is when children don't want to disappoint you. How do you earn it? You take care of them. You like them. You learn their interest. That's it. Good teachers do that.
Otto also instituted what he calls a life skills program.
With the life skill program, all it is stuff you and I were taught as kids. Be responsible, respectful. They don't have to receive an award every time they do something, but all it is, hey, thanks for holding the door open for the teacher as they walk through, or taking the lunchroom tray back, or a nice job saying thank you. We need to have those type of things in our schools.
But Otto's commitment goes beyond programs. He knows the name of every child in his school and makes it a point of reaching out to the kids at Graden.
What we created, and I feel confident saying this, a school that's safe and caring and loving for the kids. They like to come to school. That's half the battle.
The other half of the battle is trying to help kids who get in trouble. 3 years ago, Otto started the recovery room. If a student is bullying another student or is acting out, the child goes to speak with Graden's counselor, Jim Racy, in the recovery room to work out the problem.
I try to help the kids to understand that there's a better way. One, if you're being bullied, you're not tattling if you go get some help. And 2, to the bullier, if I find out who it is, I bring them in and talk to them and try to help them to understand that what's going on with you that you think you have to do this.
Shelby Troiani and Stephen Klunder said the recovery room helped them stop bullying their classmates.
It helps more when they talk to me.
To go to the recovery room and talk to them and to wait there for a while to calm down.
It's another way of dealing with people and helping them in a more positive, constructive way. That's what these kids need. Kids have a lot of struggle today, and they need support and help.
It's a sentiment shared by Principal Otto.
Never before we've had, on a magnitude level, children hurting children like this in the last 4 or 5 years, so we've got to take it serious. I do believe that bullying is tied to violence. It leads to violence in schools, and I wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing at Graden if I didn't think so.
That's a perspective that resonates loudly with Bill Head. He returned with us to Etowah High School in Cherokee County, Georgia, where his son Brian committed suicide 6 years ago.
This place is a very difficult place to come to. This is the first time I've been on these grounds in 6 years, since we lost Brian.
Ed doesn't think the school has done enough to confront the problem of bullying.
I would like to think that eventually that this school will be leading the way, which it should, in recognizing, acknowledging, and addressing peer abuse for the injustice that it is.
Despite cases like these, the dramatic increase in school shootings has not triggered a nationwide re-examination of the problem of school bullying. The reaction of most schools has been reactive, a massive step up in security. instead of being proactive, trying to stop the bullies before physical or psychological damage is done to their victims. So until our educational system comes up with comprehensive programs aimed at heading it off, we continue to run the risk of our children being bullied to death.